Hello, and welcome to the Taylor Seminars, where we talk about how Taylor Swift turns life into poetry. My name is Hannah, and I'm here with my beautiful co host, Exquisite. Hello.
Hi, Hannah. Hello, hello, hello.
Well, we are here to talk about a track that has the name. Well, actually, lots of her tracks on this album have like the names of people. And this one is a very special, famous name, Cassandra or Cassandra. You'll hear us saying it both ways. It is not. It's Greek. So,
Yeah.
uh, and it is track 27 on the Tortured Poets department. It's on the Anthology side, produced and written by Aaron Dessner and Taylor Swift. Any initial thoughts, Exquisite?
When I saw this title, well, obviously we didn't get a lot of time to sit with the title, but when I saw it and saw that it was coming up after the prophecy, I was like, well, that's ironic because for those of you who don't know, Cassandra is a mythical figure as well, even though she has like this, it sounds like a very modern name. It's actually Greek. Um, and in the myths, specifically in the Iliad, during the Battle of Troy, Cassandra she was a princess of Troy, and she was also a priestess of Apollo, or maybe not. It depends on the version of the myth you're reading. Either way, she was blessed by Apollo to have prophecies, but she was also cursed by Apollo to never be believed. Um, and I think that it is particularly interesting that Taylor feels kinship to Cassandra. I also feel kinship to Cassandra because if you follow me, I will oftentimes like just say I have the curse of Cassandra because I'll say something's going to happen and nobody's going to believe me. I correctly guessed the outcome of the Grammys and I was stoned for it. And then I was right.
This is about Midnight's winning album of the year, right?
Yeah, I said she's not going to get Song of the Year. They're going to give that to Billie Eilish, and to console her, they're going to give her Album of the Year as a consolation prize. And everybody jumped me, but I was right.
Yeah, because I mean, Cassandra is an especially tragic figure in Greek mythology because, so in the versions I grew, like I remember, like she was like Apollo's lover or something, or he like favored her, and then one day she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe like when the moment she took agency, he like turned this gift of prophecy into a curse. Well, now no one's gonna believe you, and so she's the one who like would tell like Troy like don't bring the horse in. It's evil, and they're like, haha, Cassandra. So then, um,
They're
yes,
like, haha, hysterical woman.
yeah, yeah.
They didn't believe her. They locked her away in the Tower of Troy because
She was always
they were
being
like,
a
she's just
worry
spouting
wart.
crazy.
Yeah. So to be a Cassandra is like this tragic figure who's correct but never believed. And so yeah,
Hmm.
let's dive in to this big like reference with this reference in mind. I was in
Yeah.
my new house, placing daydreams, patching up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying, 'cause that's where I was when I got the call.
I think this is so straightforward, but also so just wrapped in things because you have like she's literally like making up like she's like I'm in a new house, right? So she's like this is a new place and I'm decorating and placing like all my dreams and then she's being very visual here with us. But then also when I see this and Hannah, I don't know if this is true for you too, but I'm like, oh, like in her new home, her new place with Republic, is that where she's at?
That's where
Republic
she's at
Records.
now. Yeah,
She's at her new like with her new
label.
label, and that's when she gets to call that something bad happened. uh the bad thing obviously being that, her masters were stolen, etc.
Yeah. So if you don't know, if you're not a homeowner, patching up a crack means like something happened. There's a little line, like a little break in your wall, and so you take some spackle or something and you just patch it up and you sand it down, and then it's like it was never there. Um, But then she suddenly gets like this recollection. This is very like stream of consciousness-y, right? Where like this one
Mhm.
crack suddenly triggers a memory, and and then she remembers this call that she got, right? And so
Mhm.
yeah, I love the. It's very Proustian. It's Proust, right, where he like eats a madeleine and then he has like this whole book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
And so and then it unravels, and so I think that's what this is, right? She was just having a good time, you know, putting up her daydreams, her like musings and thoughts, and then when she's like, wait, even in this new house, there's this crack, and it reminds me of this call that I got while like I thought I'd left my past behind. It was over, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine like leaving a bad relationship or leaving a bad job and then moving to a new town, but then it still like haunts you.
Yeah, and then also this kind of is it reminds me just a little bit of the Bolter where she is describing, being in the boat and she just sees the tiniest leak and she's like, everything is not good here. I need to leave. Here she sees the crack and she's like, oh, and is remembering why perhaps she was forced out or, she got that call.
I love that. You want to read the next section?
Yes, okay. When the first stone's thrown, there's screaming. In the streets, there's a raging riot. When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking. When the truth comes out, it's quiet.
Yeah. So
She's
she's what?
real. I said she's just real. She's right.
So if you don't know, so when the first stone's thrown, so you can literally think about it as a stone being thrown, but it's also like this very biblical allusion where
Mhm.
to throw the first stone is like this idea of like the first person to attack someone or something. Like Jesus in the Bible says like let him who is among you who is without sin be the first to like throw their stone, which like to literally like pass judgment to kill someone like. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like the original is just kind of just the original meaning is kind of to say like if let the person who is above it all, or like you have to really be confident that what you're doing is the right thing, right? So
Mhm.
here someone takes that step, throws the first stone, and then they're screaming, there's a riot.
Ever to go now.
Yeah, and then everyone starts to throw these stones and even yell slurs like "burn the bitch." They're um, so
Bad.
quick to bandwagon to jump.
Mhm. But then once it's true that this bitch they're burning or like low key I'm like this is kind of a swiftism because typically it's like burn the witch, right? But here she says bitch. She is like, but they did all this yelling and throwing of stones, yet when it came out that I was innocent nobody said anything.
Yeah, yeah. The burn that I really like that connection because it reminds me of like they're burning all the witches even if you aren't one, right? It
Hmm.
kind of gives you
With their
that.
pitchforks and proofs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It gives same similar riot, similar uh, imagery, and then even like it reminds me of like Who's
Yeah.
Afraid of Little Old Me? This idea of like this spooky old lady who doesn't belong in town. Um,
Except it's interesting now that you bring up I did something bad. It's interesting that specifically in that song, she's like, well, then light me up. Because it felt good to do something bad if it is doing something bad. And here she is, I think, allowing herself to be like, and that was wrong for them to do that to me.
yeah, I think that one was more like um, reclaiming the power, kind of like turning it into like something where she can gain strength and
Mhm.
overcome. This one is like, oh, but y'all did me wrong.
Exactly. Like you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
And you shouldn't have done it because it's quiet now. And part of that quiet is the shame and of joining that witch hunt.
yeah, yeah,
Like you can't if you utter an apology, that means you were wrong. And people don't like to be wrong. So they just won't say anything at all.
yeah. It's actually sad that it's quiet because, you would expect if we had an apology and then she felt accepted again, like that would help with the pain. There would still be anger, and there'd have to be some kind of like um mending offenses, but the fact that like everyone then just stops looking at you in the eye and they just walk quickly or they cross the street, when they see you instead of reconciling, it's even more damning. Um, and it's really sad.
Yep.
Um, all right,
You
so
want to
I'll take the
chorus?
chorus. So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they filled my cell with snakes. I regret to say, do you believe me now?
That is just so, yeah, yeah. She tried to tell them.
Yeah. Yeah,
She,
it's just yeah. I mean, and here in this version, Cassandra is killed. So in the
yeah.
Battle of Troy, Cassandra is not killed. I think I
She
think
isn't killed first. She does eventually die, I
I'm sure.
think. But
I think she's one of the ones where people aren't like in the
yeah,
Iliad. I think it's
not
not clear
it's not confirmed. Some people say that she was kidnapped
by a Greek
by,
soldier or something.
yeah.
I'm gonna look
Other
it up.
people, it just depends on who you ask. It's not clear. But she was locked away and ignored. And her home was ransacked because nobody listened to her. Um,
Yeah.
some people say like it was a soldier who like
Oh, here we
kidnapped
go.
her.
Here we go. So in Homer's work, Cassandra is chosen by Agamemnon um, to be taken as like a trophy, a prize back to his home. So Agamemnon was the chief general of the Greek army, and then there's this whole more tragedy that happens. She is killed actually later in the so in Virgil, he in his Aeneid, which tells the story of what happens after Troy. Yeah, Cassandra is with it. No, Cassandra's fallen into a manic state. And then in another one by Seneca the Younger, she's also with Agamemnon. And then yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's not happy.
Nothing good happens.
Yeah,
Nothing good happens to Cassandra, that poor girl.
yeah,
Nothing good.
yeah,
But yeah. And the funny part about this is because she feared the worst. Like she was so scared. She tried to get everyone to maybe even ease her fears, to like listen to her. And because in instead of helping her, they locked her up.
yeah. No, like imagine like someone needing reassurance and to and people to just to believe her so that they could take some steps to alleviate the fear, to prevent some tragedy. But it's like she's the boy who cried wolf, but there actually was a wolf, and nobody, but like she
Yep.
hadn't lied ever, and no, but still nobody believed her.
Nobody believed her.
Hmm. Um, and
Oh,
she could have stayed silent, right? She could have just been like, all right, f you guys, but she tried to tell everybody. So how did they kill this Cassandra? They filled her cell with snakes.
yep. And I do love the I regret to say because it's like the way she sings it, you can tell she's a little smug where she's like, well, do you believe me now? It's definitely like, I told you so. And I'm upset that I had to tell you so, that it took this tragedy for you to believe me.
Hmm.
But do you believe me now? Like I told you.
Yeah, and if you know the Taylor lore with Taylor and snakes, she was called a snake during
Mm.
the height of her like hatred reputation era, I guess hatred era, where she was
Pre-reputation era.
yeah, I guess yeah, pre-reputation era in terms
The
of like the
summer of the
album.
apocalypse.
But yeah, the summer of the apocalypse, where she was basically kind of driven into hiding. So, yeah, so she, and that now she's like, well, do you believe me when it comes to the people I was, pointing out as like not nice?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because you could say this is also like a mixed muse in terms of her enemies. Like there's allusions
Yeah.
to each specific one, and yet they are also mixed. It's just these fears of and these others that are she knew are going to attack the town.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, do you believe her now?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting how in both, almost in both instances, it was kind of similar, except we didn't know at the time about, well, we knew she didn't like Scooter Braun, but we didn't know at the time that he was trying to buy her masters, but she knew. And she obviously, like, from what she has told us, and from like some letters, I think we were able to read because she shared it. She was like, I don't want Scooter by masters. She cried to him about to Scott, and Scott did what he did.
Yeah. Yeah, she knew they were being sold. She didn't necessarily know they were to Scooter until right when it happened.
Yep. And she knew
And
she was given the opportunity to buy them.
right. There was and then obviously with the whole Kim and Kanye situation, she was basically like manipulated almost and her willingness to forgive and make amends came back to bite her. And
Mhm.
so that was like yeah, really difficult. Yeah, these really difficult eras for her. Do you want to read verse 2?
Yes. I was in my tower weaving nightmares, twisting all my smiles into snarls. They say what doesn't kill you makes you aware. What happens if it becomes who you are? And then the chorus stays the same, except after I tried to tell town, she says, so they set my life in flames. Um, which I do love this imagery because again, the tower, she switches her new house for a tower. So she's taken us back, right? And she's like, this is where I was in that moment. They locked me away and all I could do was weave. Um, and so part of this is like for a lot of like history, stories will be told in tapestries. Okay. So you could weave visions or like weave like images into tapestry that tell a story instead of with like words. A lot of like tales of battles we get are in tapestries or in painting. So she is weaving this, and this weaving is also like Greek coded. That's what happened. That's how Arachne got turned into a spider, you
Mm-hmm.
know. She thought she was a better weaver than Athena, and she like proclaimed it and they cursed her. So she's in this tower where she's locked away and she's just weaving these visions she's having, you know, and they're nightmares. They're terribly scary and no one's listening to her and she's twisting all her smiles into snarls and that makes me think that she's painting herself but instead of like and painting her memories where she's smiling at people and she's like actually I should have it was snarling maybe I was not doing what I thought I was doing like maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was being like evil or manipulative with my smile so there's snarls now. um yeah, what do you think, Hannah, of
Yeah,
those
yeah. I
first two?
love your connection to like Ariadne, Arachne, the girl
Yeah,
who, yeah,
Ariadne is the that's Dionysus' wife with the golden thread. Arachne is
Arachne, the weaving
spider.
girl. But yeah, like weaving is a super common activity for women to do in Greek mythology. Like Penelope weaves that like remember like she weaves a robe for Odysseus to come home. And then,
Yep.
but yeah, like I remember in the Iliad, the women are always like weaving while watching the battles. Like that's like a
Yep.
woman's pastime. Um,
It's like yeah, it's
yeah,
it's a woman's pastime, quote unquote, what they were allowed to do, you
yeah,
know.
and I think the twisting my smile into snarls, I see it as like yeah, like here where she's alone, she can really do what she feels inside. But anyway, and then I love this little Swiftism that she does. They say what doesn't kill you makes you aware, right? The actual phrase is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes.
But they're saying, hey, like, what doesn't kill you, like it did, you're gonna just,
You're aware of it now.
yeah, like now it's gonna be fine, right?
You know what not to do.
Even though you're just being aware doesn't fix anything, right? Like, oh, I'm
Yep.
aware there's a fire coming, a wildfire coming my way. That's fine. You just sit in your house, like that little dog meme. Like this is fine. like, mm.
Exactly.
And then
Um, what happens if it becomes who you are?
What do you think that? How do you explain that?
Okay, so the way I'm explaining it, because I'm seeing it in the context of this weaving nightmares kind of thing. So of like in her nightmares, she's like seeing herself as maybe someone who when she thought she was smiling, she was actually snarling, she was being sneaky. And she's like, so I'm aware now that I'm a terrible manipulative person. So what if that is who I am? Like, am I terrible, manipulative, snarling at people? Am I a nightmare?
Mm.
And she's like had this like kind of rumination. I'm thinking bad, not bad blood. Oh my gosh. Blank space where she goes, darling, I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream. And that was delivered with like a wink and a smile, right? But as she looks back on it, because this is post 1989 now, pre-reputation, maybe, she's like, what if that wasn't actually a wink? What if that's serious? Like, what if I'm actually that nightmare? And now I'm aware of it, and that's just who I am.
I love that so much. And this, I also love this idea that like, what if like these nightmares and these fears? I think for you putting it as nightmare is really smart, but in my interpretation, it was more like if it's
Mhm.
your like you become what you fear, right? You
Yeah.
just lose your innocence. You lose. I guess it works both ways. Yeah, you lose your innocence. You lose the sense of hope and optimism,
Yep.
and you just become this paranoid, um, isolated person, and nobody
Yeah.
cares or likes you. Like,
Yeah, which is interesting because we know that's one of Taylor's fears because she straight up told us in Daylight on that outro, she was like, I don't want to be defined by the things that I hate or the things that I'm afraid of or the things that haunt me in the middle of the night. She wants to be defined by the things that she loves, but she's scared that she will be defined by like all the things that she's done and all the things that she is terrified of.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's so
and she
sad.
told us that.
Yeah. And then, yeah, then we get that
Yeah.
chorus, and then they set my life in flames. That reminds me again,
Oh,
the
but
city of Troy was literally
yeah.
sacked.
Yep.
The Greeks came in on their horse, opened the gates. All the other Greeks came in. They lit the place on.
Everybody was asleep.
Everyone was asleep. Excuse me. They lit the place on fire after looting it. Killed all the men, took the women and children prisoner.
Yeah.
And I remember reading a version of this. Where like the city burned for 7 years, which probably is not true, but like that's like the extent of the devastation that the storytellers wanted to say.
Burned for a good long while.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
yeah. So
devastating.
yeah, and then in IRL for Taylor, right? Like her life was literally like up in smoke as well. It was her reputation was in tatters. Yeah. Um, I mean, again, if we're talking about the mixed muse, right? Yes, with the edited phone call, et cetera, but also like losing your life's work. I feel like is also
Oh,
setting your her life in flames, right?
it's
Where
her legs.
yeah,
Like, yeah, because especially because she didn't know. Do you remember when she was being awarded Woman of the Decade by the AMAs
Billboard? No, oh, AMAs, yeah, AMAs, the
and she
performance.
was told by Scooter and them that she was not allowed to perform all her old work because it would be re-recording it before it was time. And she wrote us a letter and she posted it on Twitter because she said she doesn't know what to do. And they also weren't going to allow her to use her old music in her Netflix special.
I do remember
Uh,
this letter.
and I remember it because it was like my life is in flames. Like I can't even put this out. And I told everybody this would happen.
Yeah, people were like, "Oh no, like Scooter bought your masters. Why are you freaking out? Why are you freaking out?" And then it's because he literally controls my work. Like, yeah, that
Someone who hates me, I hate, controls my entire life's work. And not to be, I always get up on a pedestal at least one time, but I will say, I get so righteously angry because I feel like I'm in the right to be angry about this. When people will say, like, I just don't understand why she's still recording these. It's a cash grab every time a new re-recording comes out. And I'm like, you're mad that she was successful in doing what she said she was going to do. That's what you're mad about. It doesn't matter if you like the re-recordings or not. She was going to do them because she had to reclaim what was stolen from her. And I think that should be applauded continuously. I don't care if people are tired of it. Like they're like, we're tired of the re-recordings era. That's not the point. The point is she's taking on this huge labor that a lot of people would just be like, it's not worth it. And it's a labor of love for her own work and pride, you know? And it has completely changed her life. I would like to point, they set her life in flames and everything did burn down, but new things grow out of it. You know how forest fires,
Mm-hmm.
like the natural fires, like they look so scary, but that's what allows trees to grow.
Yep.
You know, that's why it is a part of nature. Like it had to burn down for something new to be there, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And so she should be, and it doesn't burn, like she should be allowed. And they need to leave her alone. Leave her alone. Let her do her recordings. They just hated that it was successful because no one predicted it would be a success.
Yeah.
They all thought it would be a waste of money and her time. And then look, 1999 TV sold more than the original. Like that's crazy to begin with.
Because
Anyway, I can put the pedal still down.
no, I love that. I mean, that's a perfect way to get into the bridge. They knew the whole time that I was onto something. The family, the pure greed, the Christian chorus line, they all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. Bet they never spared a prayer for my soul. You could mark my words that I said it first. In a morning warning, no one heard.
I love this bridge.
Dude, starting
I
with
love
the repeated they knew 3 times. So if you don't
Oh,
know,
and the way she sings it, it's so accusatory.
yeah, if you don't know, in a poem, generally in literature, like you can't bold things, and in a song you can't bold things. You can kind of sing things stronger, but so repeating something is a super way of like bold, highlight, underline, italics, right? So for her to say it 3 times is a big deal. Like they knew the whole time that, like that I had them. Like I knew, like that I knew something that, they hadn't completely pulled the wool over my eyes, that I had this foresight, this knowledge. Ugh.
No one believed her. She's like, look, these people are going to hurt us. And she's pointing around. She's like, they knew. And the people that she's pointing at, the reason that it's so accusatory is she's pointing at people that should have been on her
Yeah.
side. And then she says they knew the 3 times. And then she tells us who the they knew are: the family, the pure greed, and the Christian chorus line. So these are the three that she's pointing at. These are the they.
Yeah. A family that was out to get her.
Yep.
The pure greed that made them throw away a beautiful relationship at a record company to just dump it in a bin and then light it on fire.
Yep.
And then a Christian chorus line, which I've seen be referenced to a famous Sunday service, perhaps. But I would also say it's just this idea of like these people cloaking themselves in their righteous goodness,
Yeah.
right? Of
They're
just,
right. They're singing like praise God. They're so holy. So they're the ones, like the people who cast the first stone.
yeah, like these people who are like, yeah, I'm such a good person. Look at the good things that I do. Um, anyway, they all said nothing.
All said nothing. Like those are supposed to be the people that should have defended her. And they said nothing, even though they knew she was onto something. That's what there's so much hurt in this because she's like, they said they were my family. Um, they were supposed to be the good ones. Um, the pure greed, like wow. And pure greed next to the Christian chorus line is really
Oof.
interesting because one's a sin, you know?
Oh yeah, a
Um,
deadly
and it's
sin.
right between family and the Christian chorus line. And she's just so hurt that she's like, they didn't say anything while I was being strung up.
Hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah, this one I'm really interested to see the punctuation. Exquisite and I talk about
I
this all the
know.
time, right? Like, is it going to be so they knew the whole time that I was onto something, and to me, it's that they knew that I was onto something about this family, this pure greed, this Christian chorus line.
Uh-huh.
And then they all said nothing about those things as I was going through them. But then it'll if she, I mean, if she wants to change it up, I mean, I'll be curious. But I feel like, yeah,
No, I need the lyric booklet so bad.
I know.
That's what I'm most
Do you
excited for.
do you remember when the "You're Losing Me" CD came out and then had no lyrics in it?
I
We just had to
know.
like memorize it, like.
Ah,
Oh man. Anyway, back to this. They all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll.
I'm obsessed with this line. I am obsessed with it. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. It's like,
Well, hold on. Let's go back. So, that comes from this whole idea of blood is thicker than water. So, it's another way Taylor's twisting things.
yeah,
I just Googled it so I don't say it wrong. It's used to say that a person's family is more important than a person's other relationships or needs, right? Like
yeah,
like blood is thicker than water. You got it. Family first, right?
yeah. And then
Loyalty.
what's interesting about that phrase though is that it's also wrong. It's supposed to be it comes from the phrase the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it's supposed to be
Oh,
like the family you chose from yourself is even like stronger. Those bonds are even stronger than just the family you were born into. But then they got changed to just the half of blood's thicker than water of the like family is supposed to be um, you know, the strongest ever. So there's like three levels to this.
dang. So yeah, so put it all together in this for this context.
Blood's thick. The people who were supposed to care about her. They didn't though because there is nothing like money.
So the people she had a bond with, this thicker than water bond, once they saw
Hmm.
the money, they were like, these money bands look thick. These money stacks
And yeah, and it's
look
especially
thicker.
like it has to hurt. Like the way she's singing this, you can hear the hurt, but it's also like it's like steeped in kind of like this sarcastic "I told you so"
Yeah.
almost as she's singing that. But it's like even like you just look at Scott Borchetta and through the years Taylor would talk about how much this man was like that was like her father figure, you know? Like they he believed in her so much and her family believed in him so much that when they signed her, you know, it was like becoming family. Like and they built this together. It was supposed to be a together thing. But Taylor and even I remember when Taylor left, I always want to call them Big Red Machine, but it's not. It's Big
Just
Machine.
big machine.
Um Red Red I want to say Big Red Machine because there's that band
That's
that
yeah,
Bonnie
that's
Bear.
right.
Yes, it is.
Right. But big machine
Big
is
Machine
the yeah.
is the company that Taylor built. She built it on her back. She's the reason they even made so much money, you know? Um, and I think she's like, when given the opportunity to make more money, he picked that over me. And she was nice about it when she left Big Machine, you know? I remember that letter she made where she's like, I appreciate everything we did there,
Yep. It was very
but
kind.
it was very kind. But it was like that was also kind of like one of her warning shots when she went to UMG and I remember she told us she went there because they gave her control of her masters and
Yeah.
basically gave her a lot more freedom. And I remember when she used to tell us like Big Machine didn't want her to go pop. They wanted 1989 to be labeled country. She wasn't allowed to do a lot of things at Big Machine because they didn't trust her. Even though whenever Taylor bets on herself, she always wins. I'm also thinking he's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me. Um, and that's really all she needed. But it is interesting that he would like this line, all of that is condensed in the but nothing's like a payroll. Like he would give up years and years of family and trust for $300 million.
Yep. And yeah, like and even though they used to have this relationship and this friend, whoever the muse is, as again, like as we're saying, it's like moving in and out, right?
Yeah,
They never spared a prayer for her soul. Like it was like I washed my hands of this.
they didn't care.
Yeah.
They don't care how it affects her. They don't care if maybe she felt like that was the end of her world. Like if they don't care that her whole life went out in flames. Like bet they never spared a prayer. Like they did this for money and didn't even think, I hope she'll be okay.
Yeah. And then you can mark my words. So here she's like doing another prophecy. You can,
Yeah.
or kind of like you check my work. I said
You
it
can say,
first.
look, I said this would happen.
Yeah. And then I love this last line because of
Oh.
the I guess is it a homophone homonym in a
It's
morning warning.
it's a homophone. They sound
Yeah.
alike.
So it could sound like in a morning warning, as in like in the morning, right? Like
Yeah.
during the day. Like it was the first thing she said, right? Like
Yep.
right in terms of like a timeline in the beginning. But then it could
Yep.
also be in a morning, like you're grieving, right? Like she
Yeah.
already was grieving it during her initial prophecy because she was already like knew it was lost, even though because no one believes her.
And I think the lyrics have mourning as in grief.
Yeah,
Uh, but again, I love that she chose that word and that she specifically like. I think the lyrics have the grief version of it because then it forces you to be like, oh, it can be both. Like you hear it as mourning in the morning, but also mourning. Like she was grieving when she gave this warning, like because she knew, like she's like something is about to die, and no one heard her call. Like no one listened.
so sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you get the next verse.
Uh, Yay. Okay, because I really gosh, I enjoy this whole song, but I like this part as well because I patched up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying because that's where I was when I lost it all. I love this because it changes the beginning because at where we started at, she says patching up the crack along the wall. So she was having, her daydreams and she was physically working to heal it, right? And so now she's like, I patched up that crack, I healed it. But even now, when I move past it, I walk past it, I lose track of what it is, who even I'm talking to, because this is what happened. That's where I was when everything fell apart, because that's where I was when I lost it all.
Yeah, it's like this idea that yeah, grief is not a one-time thing, and especially a like traumatic events, life-altering events. There will be times when it gets triggered and you kind of relive that moment and it impacts you. And the hope is with time and therapy and more time, it will get better. Um,
Hmm.
but it's also okay to carry scars, right?
Yep. And then that whole outro is like she just was repeating it, but it's like the way she's repeating it. There's the I was on to something. They all said nothing. She's like taking she doesn't need to say the full sentence. She's like, I was on to it. No one heard, not a single word was heard, you know?
Yeah, it's
Ugh,
very much like for me when I
going
hear it's not as accusatory anymore. There's no they knew, right? But it's like it's now so much more resigned, right? And
and
like
exhausted.
yeah, exhausted and still very isolating, right? This is definitely a song written about like closure. Like songs like Closure, have similar subject matter, but this one is like the sad version, like
Yeah.
the man, why am I still sore, right? Like why? Have you heard of trauma-versaries?
No, what's that? Oh,
So
yes, I have.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for people who haven't.
yeah, for people who haven't, so I think a really good book about this is called The Body Keeps the Score. But anyway, it's this idea that like you might notice that on the anniversary, especially yearly anniversary of a traumatic event like the death of somebody, or a big illness, you might notice that you kind of feel the similar twinge of whatever it is that next year. And so people used to think, oh, like why am I feeling so funky the leading up to like I don't know February 5th, and you're like, oh my gosh, February 5th last year, that's when I got into a car accident, right? A big car accident. And so, um, and it's, how, and your body just remembers. Maybe it remembers where the
Yep.
sun was that day. And so it remembers
Yep.
the sun the previous year. So,
And
it,
it is where she goes, like it's patched, it's supposed to all be healed, and you pass it and you look and you're like, I'm losing track of everything. And you look at that date and you're like, oh. That's why.
Yeah. And it's just a reminder, like if you do have trauma versaries, take care of yourself. Give yourself, maybe take a day off work or go for a walk. Be kind to yourself leading up to it. Just because, yeah, it's part of healing is letting yourself, you know, feel it and let it go. So, Taylor,
Yeah.
this is to you.
Yeah, literally. Taylor, if you're listening, and I hope you're listening, hello, we love you. And if you are listening, I hope you enjoy our little podcast.
I know it's our first time breaking the fourth wall for Taylor, right?
I know. Like I always assume she's not, but I'm like, wait, what if she is, you know? Because this is really for Taylor. This is for us. But
Yes.
if she's listening, we love you a lot. Anyway, anyway, beyond that, because I'm not gonna break that parasocial fourth wall because she's probably not listening. Or she could be.
Oh my gosh.
Again, that this whole outro of she's not changing anything, but she isn't saying maybe the full sentence. It's just it is just so she only changes like not a single word was heard.
Hmm.
And then she repeats that when the first stone's thrown, they're screaming.
Yeah.
Um,
And then that, I think so she repeats, well, that kind of does that. No one heard, not a single word was heard, right? Like she was warning everyone, no one heard it. But then at the outro, when the truth comes out, it's quiet. It's so quiet, right? Like
exactly.
again,
Again, she admit she was right.
yeah, right? Like you guys didn't hear me, but then when it came true, now none of you are like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, or we should have listened, or something. Now y'all are like, not even talking to me.
Yeah. And then it's like beyond even just the two main things of it all. Um, in areas where it's like it's so important to be believed and no one believes you, that in itself is traumatic, where you are telling the truth and you know you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Um, and people won't believe you either because they're like the person that you are telling the truth about is like maybe it's somebody that everybody like holds up to a higher status or whatever, and they're like that would never happen, they would never do that, and it's like why aren't you listening to me? And now typically women, when they are telling their truth and they're saying what happens, they are not believed. um and that sucks that we live in a world like that. But again, it is like when the truth comes out, it's quiet because there's so much shame. The people who did the yelling and did the bitch hunting, um, they they are burned at the stake just for them to be right. And then no, like once you've already like hunted someone down and like killed them, you know, it's like you can't, there is no amends that you can make when you should have just believed them in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And that
it's a sad song.
it's sad. Like to not be believed. Ugh.
Yeah.
And that's why like again that like what if it becomes who you are? Like I like you can imagine how it can just twist somebody's inside if they're telling the truth and they're constantly telling the truth and no one ever listens to them. Then you start gaslighting yourself. You're like, have I ever told the truth before? You know? Um, it's upsetting.
It is. And it and she's right, it does impact you. Like once you're not believed enough, right? Like you think you're crazy or you're never going to talk about what you see and you're going to try to delude yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad song. But it's okay because people, I mean, we believed her.
Exactly. I would like to say I was always there. And even if she was lying, I would have let her lie. But I believed her. Um, and I always believed her. And you know what this is reminding me of? I just recently watched Megan the Stallion's documentary, and I think like the Megan in her own words, if you haven't watched it, it's on Amazon Prime. This is not an ad, you should check it out. Where she talks about what it felt like for literally no one, like for all of the male rappers and even football basketball stars and all those fake blogs to call her a liar when she was telling the truth
Yeah.
for no reason other than the fact that she's a woman,
Yeah.
that they wanted to be like, she's not to be believed. And you could, and hearing Megan say it, like watching, you could just tell how, like how much that hurt, and you could see it. Um, and Taylor herself has talked like candidly, like in Miss Americana, she talked about how it felt to just see everybody turn on her. And it's like so many women are constantly being the target of these witch hunts for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And ugh, it's so upsetting. Um, yeah, believe women.
Yeah, I do
Show
think
your
that there's a way you can zoom out of this and be like, hey, like this is the experience of many many women out there.
many, many, many women.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I picked
On
an
that
emoji.
happy note.
I picked an emoji for our episode. It's the evil eye emoji.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you type in evil eye, if you don't know what it is, it's basically like this. It's like a blue ringed circle. So you'll see them. It's got like a black in the middle, and then like light blue, and then like dark blue around it. So if you would like to participate in our little emoji comments, feel free to leave us as many as you want, so we can ward off all the other evils in the world. Um, yeah, I think I do think this is the song that seems so simple on the surface, but is very painful underneath. So,
I agree.
as
Yeah.
as of this podcast's recording, she still has not played it, and
I know.
I think she might
I'm
not.
scared she never will. She may never, ever, ever play this song.
It's I think yeah, because again, it's very painful underneath. So I would understand.
I can imagine she won't. I hope she will though.
Yeah,
But I know why she won't, if that makes sense.
yeah. It's not like fun, like "Thank You, Amy," like able to be remixed into like mean. I know people have predicted her mixing it with Mad Woman, and I could see it, but
I can see it. But I
we'll
also see if she's gonna play it for the first time, I think she'll play it all the way through and then maybe she'll tack on at the end. Nothing's like a mad woman, you know, but
all right, let's see if that Cassandra prediction comes true. Exquisite. Uh,
maybe.
yeah. Okay. Let me see. What is next? Next is Peter. So guys, we're still in the thick of it.
Ugh.
Um. Uh.
We're never gonna be out of the thick of
Oh
it.
my gosh. We get a little bit of like the fun bolter as a little bit of a
Yeah.
palate
And then
cleanser.
Robin and the
Oh
manuscript.
man. Yeah,
We're
guys.
almost done.
Uh, oh my gosh. Yeah, we are very close to the end. Don't worry, dear listener. We'll probably take a little break. Who knows? We might not take a break, and then we'll dive into something else, whether it's Midnights or something else. But
We'll,
yeah, we'll see if she drops something. I don't know. She can.
we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening so much. Don't forget to follow us on socials, to talk with us online. If you would like, you can give us a little tip on Ko-fi. You'll find the links in the show notes and stuff. But we really appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you soon.
And Taylor, if you're listening, um, Hannah has one more Eras tour.
Oh my gosh, if she's listening, she's not listening to it in order.
I know.
All right, bye everyone.